All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the employment user group in partnership with APSI. And so while we are waiting for a few people to still join us, I do have a poll that I want you guys to fill out. So it should be coming across your screen now. And if you could please take a few moments to kind of let us know if you are a Therap customer or not. See if I can get 90% votes. At least 88% has voted already. So I'm gonna go ahead and close this particular poll to let you guys see the results. And it looks like 89% of you are Therap customers. So that's great, and 11% not. And I have one more poll for you guys, and I want to see if you are a member of APSI. And thank you guys so much for answering these poll questions. All right, and so we almost have 80%, so I'm gonna go ahead and close the poll. And most of you are not APSI members, so 68% said no, 34% said yes. So I am going to let Cassie kind of explain a little bit about what APSI is. But before I do that, I do want to let you guys know that we do have an us at Therap have an employment base camp group, and I've entered that into the chat. So if you guys kind of want to join that, and you do not have to be a part of Therap to join it. It's just so you could talk about any employment related information or share information amongst the same agencies. You can join that group. And also, after this is over, I will send a survey of 3 questions. If you guys can answer that for me, that'll be great. And so now I'm going to have Cassie kind of introduce herself and what APSI is.
Great. Thank you so much, Ebony. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cassie Beckman. I am the Director of Member and Chapter Relations with APSI National. It looks like we have a lot of people on the webinar this afternoon who are not APSI members. So if you're not, APSI is a 3,000 plus membership organization. We have members in all states as well as abroad. We are the only membership organization with an exclusive focus on employment. And we want to pay particular thanks to Therap as they are a strategic partner of ours. And this year is especially a big deal in our world because we're celebrating our 30th anniversary this year. And as part of that celebration, we have our annual conference coming up next June 18th through 20th in St. Louis, Missouri. We'd love to see many of you join us there. Something special that we're doing this year for non-member attendees is that you are able to join us as an attendee at the conference as well as an APSI member for just $20. So that's something that we're excited to offer this year. Our early bird registration is now open. We have information about that on our website, which is apsi.org, apse.org. And our call for proposals is now open. So that's something you may be interested in as well. So that's open through December 14th. We're also welcoming sponsors and exhibitors, and we have all that information on our website. A couple other quick things. We're also very excited to have recently launched a new website and a new membership database. And we've recently welcomed a professional development director as we shift our focus, or rather increase our focus on building professional development opportunities, in particular for employment support professionals to grow in their careers. So again, anyone who's not a member, or even if you are, I encourage you to check out our website and join us next June in St. Louis.
Oh, great. Thank you, Cassie. And I just realized I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Ebony, and I'm a special project manager here at Therap. And I am kind of overseeing the employment area at Therap. And so now Heather is going to talk to us about using Therap to bill for employment services.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Heather Thornton. I'm a billing specialist with Therap Services. I'm going to show you my screen here just a moment. One thing I do want to kind of mention is that if you do have any questions as we're kind of going through this, please put those in the chat box over there to your right. In addition to that, I do want to do a nice little disclaimer that this is not state specific. This is just to kind of give you a general idea of how you could gather that billing information, even submit it to state entities, MCOs, that kind of thing where applicable. And a couple of different ways to track some of that utilization as well. So it's going to be a kind of a high-level overview on some of those different aspects that you could utilize within the system.
Please,
yeah, go ahead.
Everyone is saying your connection and your audio is breaking.
Okay, is it still breaking?
Yes.
Hang on just a second. All right, how is that?
That is perfect then.
Okay, good deal. All right, that being said, I hope everybody can see my screen all right. Nice little Therap screen right there. So those that are familiar with Therap, that's great. Some of this is going to be a little stuff that you're already aware of. For some of your supported employment services, whether they be, your job searching, your actual job coaching, those different aspects, you're going to have that piece of documentation in place. So I'm going to show you a couple of those pieces, because one of the really nice parts about the Therap billing system is that you're able to bill directly off of that piece of documentation itself. So there's not an additional entry anywhere. It pulls directly from that time in and time out via that documentation. So just to kind of give you an idea on those, the first one I want to go over is your ISP billing. So basically that means your ISP program that you would be utilizing for documentation purposes. We're going to let it open right here. So I'm going to go ahead and select my program. And this would be your note for providing the services, what you did with that individual for that particular service on that particular day. So we'll just give it a minute there. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and select my individual I'm going to document on. And I'm going to go ahead and select my applicable program. Okay. All right, so I go ahead and select my applicable data service, and I'm going to just push it back to the first. Now I could do today's date just to let you know, but okay. All right, and I'm going to come down here and hit my submit. All right, so it's going to take me to my entry. Now I'm going to go ahead and do my time in, time out. Pretty straightforward. Same thing with their entry. I want to, even though for billing purposes, you may not necessarily need to know this part, but it's a really good idea to know where that information is deriving from in the system, and then how it's attached to that individual with their applicable information. So I'm going to go ahead and that right there, come down here, and I would answer the questions accordingly. Okay, and this of course is customizable to your needs, to your requirements that you're wanting to address for those services. This is really just to kind of give you an idea of the functionality of doing it from ISP data. So we have it marked as billable right there. And then we would hit submit. So that would be your staff's entry. Okay, so then you're able to bill directly off of that entry, but I want to show you how that information kind of comes together. Okay. All right, so right over here, I'm sorry it's just taking its time today, so thanks for your patience. I obviously don't have any, so. All right. So in Therap, the billing module actually all comes together via a service authorization. And it's the same premise of you receive an authorization to provide services. You got to have an authorization in the system in order to do anything with the billing module. Okay, and what this looks like here. Maybe. Sorry about that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and come in here. Now I'm using this twofold, okay, just to kind of show you where all this information comes together. This one is the one I have actually hooked up to your ISP program, so that one we just documented on. I have their authorized units that you received on your authorization. You have the rate that's associated with that applicable service code, and that is kind of part of that initial admin setup that you would do to utilize the billing system. But that information populates over any applicable modifiers. But right down here, this is where you're designating, this is how I want to calculate my billing information, is I want it to pull directly from this piece of this ISP program that's associated with that individual for that service. So just to give you an idea right there, I'm going to go ahead and X off of there. All right, just to give you an idea how that's tied in. So we entered in our data. So when you're actually ready to generate your billing information, you can go ahead and come over here to your billing data in your ISP billing. You're going to put in your service dates. And I'm going to go ahead and we're going to just do for the month of September. When you're generating your billing data out of Therap, you're actually generating your service line information, just to let you know. So I would go ahead and grab my applicable service code. I do not have to designate a program here. Actually, I know exactly what happened here. Okay. You're going to designate that applicable dates of service. Right here, we didn't save that entry. And that's what's going to calculate those actual units for you. And let's go ahead and go finish off that entry. And it's okay. I know Ebony was nice enough to put in some data so we could show you the calculations. And it did, by the way, but we have something set up in the system. And it's actually a documentation restriction that says in some states you're not actually able to bill for something if you don't do it within so many days of the dates of service. So we have that automatic function in Therap. So if you go into a note and you go in there, maybe you have it set for 3 days or 7 days for that specific state, by the way, the system will automatically mark that note for no for billable, just as an FYI. So Ebony was nice enough, but she didn't know I had that setting in place. So we're just going to go update that real quick. Yep. Okay. And we're just going to go ahead and pop that to yes. Make a comment. Okay. And come down here and hit update. All right. I'm not going to do that for all of them. This is just to give you that idea. Go ahead.
There is one question. Does this billing system meet the Minnesota daily billing requirements?
Yes. we've been billing successfully in Minnesota for a number of years now. And when you went to the day-to-day billing transition, was it March? Yeah, we were already doing that nationwide, so it was an easy adjustment. It was just a setting that was already in Therap that could accommodate the change. So yes.
Thank you.
All right. So now that we have billable ISP data in here, we're now going to go over here to your ISP billing. And we're going to put in those September service dates. There we go. And subscription right there. And we should have that be able to come up. Okay, so that is going to pull up anybody that has documentation in place for those services, for those service dates. So I'm going to go ahead and select my individual. Now, before I even generate this, I can come over here and do a little snapshot and see what is there to be generated for billing. If I need to, I can actually go to this piece of documentation from there, but this is just a nice spot check. We do have overall reports that will show this in a larger scale, so it's not one person at a time for one service code. All right. All right, so down here, we actually have our bundle rules. And this is what actually tells the system, I want a service line for each date of service, or I want a date span, okay? The calculation of units just states, I'm going to calculate this based on time in, time out, or is this a flat unit fee, or is this a daily rate? So you make those designations here. The apply rounding algorithm is if you have a rounding that you're able to apply for that service. So say for your service, it's a 15-minute unit, so it's a quarterly hour unit. And your state says, okay, once you meet that 8 minutes, you can round up to that nearest 15-minute increment. That's what we say by rounding algorithm. So what this indicates is that at what time do we want to apply that half up? Do we want to do that for each entry that's put in, or do we want to gather up all those minutes for the day and apply it at that time? All right, so these settings right here, these are great default settings. These are settings I'm going to leave them as. And I'm going to go ahead and select Generate Billing Data. All right. So the nice part here is that you're going to get a representation of exactly where that billing information came from. So if I come in here, there's my authorization information, there's specific service information. Right down here, here's my total billable units. And then I have a reference directly back to that documentation itself. Okay. All right. One thing I do want to mention as well is that the service authorizations, yes, they are a representation of when you're authorized to provide services. But what I've also set up in the system as well is that you're also able to utilize those dates to track milestones in the system too. And what I mean by that is if you have to meet like a 30 or 60 or 90-day milestone, you can have those date parameters in the service authorization representing that information. And what that does for you, it just puts kind of you can set up reminders on service authorizations to indicate you want, that you want that there needs to be something done at this point. So for that 30-day milestone, were those goals met? It's just a nice little indicator for you. It's still the same service code along those lines, but you can even specify on that specific date that's their 30-stone milestone date. You can put in additional information on that note. So there are different ways to utilize these dates of service within the service authorization. So for instance, right here, I have, let's see, give me just a second. Because I pushed it back. All right, so right here, so here are my job coaching. This is my 60-day because this person started on 7/1. So I have that authorization set for 7/1 to 7/31. Now this is an option, but this is just to give you an idea how you could still track that type of data within the system as well, while still billing, while still being able to accommodate it. The other one I wanted to show you, the other option to gather that billing data is your case note. Now, case note in Therap is just another place to gather that documentation itself. And I'm pretty big on pulling directly from documentation. We do have an attendance piece where you can go in and say, this person was here this time, this time. You can even reference it back to documentation. But when you're looking at goals, looking at summaries and everything like that, you're still going to have that piece of documentation in place, or still need to have that piece of documentation in place. What I want to show you here is the case note. The difference with the case note is that you're going to be able to select the actual service code you're working on at that given time with that individual. Okay, so right here, I'm going to go ahead. We're just going to do for the first is fine. Okay, and when you see this template on the next screen, this is just to give you a general idea. These are, of course, customizable as well, kind of like the ISP programs. But these are really nice because you can designate questionnaires that you want somebody to answer each time they go in. And see the individual, provide the services to individuals. So it does have a different capability than the ISP program, and vice versa as well. It's just really kind of what best suits your purposes, what best suits your documentation purposes as well. But either option, you would be able to generate that billing data off of it. But just to give you an idea, this is just a very basic case note template. Of course, time in, time out. And we're just going to go ahead. Right here. And and what I mean by the actual service is if they have that service assigned to them. And actually, just 1 second, because I pushed those back.
Heather, while you're doing,
I want you to see.
There is a couple of questions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let me find the one. So one question is, did you say that we only have so much time to bill on a service?
That's a state-specific option. CMS recommends 24 hours within the date of service, but there are some states like within North Carolina, Missouri, and Alaska where they actually have state-specific regulations that says if you do not document within this date of within so many days of the date of service, then it's actually not a billable note and they can recoup monies.
Question is, so you could flip them to billable from the list that was shown as long as you have one that is showing, one that is billable to show.
Correct. So you would, but they just generated billing data for that one note, because that one was indicated as, yes, you do have an override on that billing restriction as well. So if that is something that you want to put in place internally within your agency, if you're not in one of those specified states, you certainly can. On the other hand with that is that we do also have an exception report that would show you anything that fell into that non-billable category. And you have an override privilege for specific staff that you can give them the option of overriding that defaulted to no status. So.
Do you want me to keep going with the questions, or do you want to finish this? No question.
Go ahead.
Okay, so is this system adaptable for state-funded services in Oklahoma, where we have no authorization codes for state-funded individuals?
It depends on if you are electronically submitting the claims now, because you would still have to have some form of a designated code in order to do an electronic claim submission.
How do you set up reminders for the service authorization?
I will show you those notification settings shortly.
Okay. We are currently using the billing module, but had to stop using it for employment services because we have 2 rounding algorithms, and Therap was not able to accommodate this. Is this still the case?
I think I know who that is. Right now, if it's the case I'm thinking of, where it's that first 15-minute increment that has a certain rounding, and then after that increment, it has a different rounding, no, Therap is still not able to accommodate that.
And the last question, I think I can answer this, is the case note feature available with the app? And if you're talking about the mobile app, not at this time.
Yep.
But you can do it via mobile if you go into your web browser.
All right. Are we good there?
Oh, wait, one more. On state funded in Oklahoma, there is no billing code. Everything is submitted via paper and sent by email or snail mail.
Yeah, then that's going to stay as your procedure for those. But the nice part is that if you want to, you can still track all of that data within the system. You don't have to have a specific service code to set up a service authorization and to start tracking that data within the system. So whatever you're producing that has to go on snail mail, you're not calculating that any other way. You're getting that information directly from that system that's calculating that information for you. And that also gives you that additional tracking capability of having all of that within the system as well.
Okay. And I don't think I mentioned this, but if you guys have any questions, you can chat them below in the question box. And you all are muted, so if you kind of raise your hand, then I'll know that you want to talk. But we'll pause and kind of answer questions as we go along. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and come down here and do my time in, time out. There we go. And what's nice about the case note as well is that it's not going to allow you to select a service unless they have an authorization in place for that service. And that's kind of why I like the case note if you're kind of doing that milestone tracking as well in regards to doing those dates on the service authorization, because it won't allow you to select that service if you don't have those parameters already set up on the service authorization. Just kind of a little tidbit there. But down here, these are optional fields, the activity type, the location. These can be, you know, evaluation face-to-face. You can have where it's actually set up. That's all part of that template setup that you would produce prior to people starting documenting. The billable, you can actually have it set up to defaulted in there. Was it a face-to-face? Any additional people or people contacted in relation to that. And this is just an open narrative. Like I said before, you can have a questionnaire that you can apply in here that people have to designate and answer the questions each time. I don't happen to have one in here. I don't believe so. Okay. And I would just come down here. Now, the additional piece in here is that you have a save, which puts this note into a draft status. And then your submit is what is going to allow you to put it into it is similar to an approved status. It has to be in an approved status or submitted status in order to generate billing data from that information. So if I come over here and I come to my billing, and I'm going to show you a couple of reporting aspects as well in the billing here in just a moment. I'm going to come down here to my case note billing and select my applicable service code and my service dates. And we're just going to go ahead and do for August here. Okay, and go ahead and do my search. Okay, and again, it's going to pull up anybody that has documentation in place for those services. Over here to the right, again, I can do a little snapshot of what is there to be generated for billing. So you have several audit checks prior to ever getting to the point of generating that billing data or that service line information. I'm going to go ahead and select my individual and hit generate billing data. Okay. So again, that generated my billing data information. I'm going to have reference directly back to that documentation. Now, as soon as I hit my generate billing data, I have access to some amazing reports within the system. One of those being your billing data summary report right here. And I'm just going to go ahead and pull it up for our individual. And come on down. Now we have a few output columns there of data. And all of these reports I'm going to show you as well can be exported to Excel. All right, and just to give you a little bit of an idea, so we have our job coaching ones up top. I'm going to go ahead and export this to Excel so you can kind of get an overall view. It's a little harder to see through the scrolling. But again, if you're not able to, so for instance, for vocational rehabilitation, most of voc rehabs in the states that I've worked in over 30, I get into about 40 states of billing. Most of voc rehabs don't have an electronic submission option. You're still able to gather all of that data within the system. You're still able to produce an invoice based off of that generated billing information as well. So let me go ahead and pull this over a little bit for us. Okay, so just to give you an idea, so I'm looking at this top couple lines here. So this is going to break down each date of service, how many units were generated for those dates of service when I generated my billing information. The unique thing about this specific report is this is a caseload-based report. So you could give your managers, your supervisors, access to this report, and they're only going to see access to who you've given them access to see. But this actually has your authorization information in it. So it's going to specify the service. It's going to show you how many units were generated for billing. It's going to show you the amount. This is a cert for your service line to be billed out. This is the remaining units as of today on this authorization, the total units they started off with. If you've assigned it onto a claim, it'll show that claim ID, and it'll also show you the status of the claim as well. So this is a very impactful report, and this is what we call a service level report because it's breaking down your service line information. Now, well, that's excuse me. Well, that's great. I do want to show you another one, and this one I feel has several different applications on how it can be utilized, and it's called a utilization report. I know I just went to the redundancy phrasing, but this is also a service level report. So this is also one you're going to be able to pull as soon as you generate that billing information. Okay, so right here, I'm going to go ahead and come down and grab my individual. Now you can do this by program. You can do this, excuse me, by service code as well. And I'm just going to go ahead and come back to, oh, I guess it'd be nice to do this year. And I'm going to grab August and generate my Excel report. We'll give that just a minute. Okay, so right here, this would break down this person, this person's, all their services. It would show the generated billing data for those dates of service. It's going to show you your total units. It's going to show you your total amount. If you have a monthly cap for your supported employment services, you can actually put that in the authorization and have that additional reporting along the side with this report. In addition to the monthly option here, you have your date range option. And what that is going to do, that's going to allow you to pull up to a year's worth of data out of the system. So if you're looking at annual meetings, reassessing what they're utilizing, this is what I would recommend pulling, because it's going to break down more authorization information for you. All right, so there is all of Jackie's services, remaining days, total authorized units, total used units, overall total amount, overall utilization on the overall authorization, and the current remaining units as of today. So these are the available units as of today for Jackie for these services on these authorizations. So very useful report, and really to do with as you see fit, but it is a utilization. It is to help you stay on top of that, so you're able to help schedule accordingly and provide the services throughout their plan time. All right, so we generated that billing information. Now we would go ahead and go assign that on a claim. Now in Therap, we have claim templates, which just allows you to populate that Medicaid provider information, NPI information, already associated to that individual for that service code information. So when you go to generate your claim, you're going to go to your new using template. You're going to select your applicable service code. And you have your service dates. I'm just going to go ahead and stick with our Augusta. And this is producing a claim, so you can only do 1 month at a time here. All right, so right down here, I would be able to go ahead, and this is going to show anybody that has one of those claim templates in place for that service. So as long as they have one of those and they have their service designated with it, their name will populate here. Okay, so just to give you an idea what that claim looks like, it's going to have the payer associated with it. This pulls directly from that authorization information. This populates directly from your claim template. This populates from your face sheet information in Therap, because if you're doing an electronic submission, these are required fields. Required data to pull over from that. You have your place of service information. This information here is defaulted for your state, by the way, already preset in Therap. And right down here is what actually shows you that generated billing data information. Now, if I'm not able to do an electronic submission, I do have the capability, let me show you where that is going to apply. I do have the capability, again, of pulling that invoice, or I even have the capability of pulling out a CMS 1500, which is, of course, your paper claim form. Let me go ahead and show you what that looks like, and show you what the invoice looks like as well. So we're going to go ahead and open up our claim and come down here, and right down here, here is my CMS 1500. I can print that off. There is my preview version. We're just going to, just so you can see what that looks like. Okay. Pretty standard stuff right there. Your invoice comes from, you can customize it to a certain extent. I know that's kind of small, so on there, have to forgive me on that. But it will break down that applicable information, your service line information. It's going to apply your funding source, or who you're getting paid by, to that invoice on that claim, and their applicable information. All right. Now, if you are able to electronically submit your claim, that's great. But if you aren't, you do have the capability of manually reconciling in the system. And we have 2 ways of you to do that. So you can, of course, manually reconcile it 1 claim at a time. So here's my billable. I would sit here and mark paid and put in my paid amount. Okay, and that's going to reconcile the claim in the system, so it's not going to show outstanding in any of the reports. Your other option is a bulk reconciliation. So if you're not able to submit these electronically in your state, hi Oklahoma, for those specific ones you are indicating, you have your professional claim, you have a status update Excel upload. And what that does is that pulls down any claims that are in that manual billing status, meaning it's not going to an electronic payer. It's going to let you pull down all of those claims and say, oh, okay, paid on all of them, and put in the paid amount, and turn around and upload them back into the system and let you reconcile the claims in a bulk manner. Okay, so you have two ways of manually reconciling the claim information. But if you are able to do your claim submission, we have two different ways for you to go about it. We have your professional claim and send. Maybe. And this is a small batch submission, meaning it's going to allow you to submit 100 claims at a time per payer. And it'll just bring up the list of applicable claims to send on the next screen. I would do my select all and hit send claim. My other option here is a large batch submission, which will let you send up to 1,000 claims at a time. But it is per service description code. So I'd be able to select multiple service description codes here, but they have to have the same encode in common. The payer and of course the service dates, and those service dates have to be within the same month. But you hit send out of there. You don't get the next screen, but those will send the higher number of claims out the door for you. All right, once claims are submitted in Therap, they go into a queued status within the system. Therap does sweeps 4 to 5 times a day and grabs anything in queued status and submits it to that applicable electronic payer source that you have indicated from that person's service authorization. So as long as you have that applicable funding source or who you're getting paid by designated on their service authorization, guess what? It's not, you're not going to be able to mistakenly send it somewhere else. All right. The one other thing I do want to show you in the system is once you get those, if you are able to submit those claims electronically, you're able to come back and reconcile those electronically as well via getting an 835 from a portal site, depending on your status, how you're going to access these. And what that is, it's an electronic version of your remittance advice report. It's in an ANSI X12 format. And all that means it's in the correct format in order for Therap to apply that to the claims you submitted. And once that is done, you're able to pull reports to show you what was paid in full, what was denied, what is remaining outstanding within the system. So it kind of gives you greater reconciling capabilities for that data itself. But yeah, so that is kind of just a pretty higher level overview of kind of how that billing module works. I gave you some indicators on how you can apply that for your manual billing, how you can apply that with just for tracking purposes to gather data, or if you're actually truly doing an electronic submission. We do have various auditing reports for billing purposes in the report library. You have a billing specialist that works with you on setting up the billing module in your system. So you're not giving this, or if you would decide to go forward with the billing module, you're not just giving it and go, here you go. We take it very seriously that it meets what you need it to do to the best of our capabilities as well. So I'm not going to go into so much of that setup detail of that piece of it, because like I said, we do all of that piece with you. But that's really what I had to review with you today. Are there any other questions?
There's tons of questions.
No.
So the next one is, make sure I'm answering the right one. We generate by attendance. Can we still continue to do it that way?
Yep.
Okay, so next one is there any plans to change service and unit rates on case notes to only show service code instead?
So it's not displaying the rate itself. That has been discussed, but I'm not aware of where that was left at. So right now, I don't think there's any development on changing that at this time.
Can report forms be created in Therap to document benchmarks and send to our state voc rehab agency for billing?
It can definitely be something that can be discussed depending on what those reports and parameters look like.
Why does the aging report does not export to Excel anymore?
It does export to Excel, but you need to make sure on your user privileges that you have the export to Excel option indicated right here. Otherwise, it won't show up for you to be able to export.
What are some suggestions for gathering service activities in 15-minute increments during the day to enter for attendance and ISP entry?
Same way is that you would go ahead and you would do an entry for any 15-minute increment you had. So if you provided time for 10 to 12, and then you additionally came back and you worked with that person from 2 to 3, that would be 2 entries within the system. And then the system would calculate it accordingly. So it either, depending on that rounding that you set up, either you wanted to break it down by each session and apply applicable rounding, or either you want to gather up all the minutes for that day and apply the rounding. It's still going to calculate all of the data for the day that's been inputted in.
Concerning GVRA and not having electronic billing, would these tasks functioning fall under signing up for employment services or billing?
Billing.
What reports in the report library would you suggest us to look into?
A few of those would be, come over here. So depending on which method of data collection, and when I say method of data collection, that's that ISP billing, case note, or attendance option there. Some of those are, you have an attendance billing summary report, which is a really good one. You have, excuse me, you have a late entry note as well, which basically this would say if you generated billing data on the 1st for, say September, okay, and you want to see if anybody entered anything after that point, you could put in the service dates for September, okay, and say, I want to see any information that was entered in from the 2nd through today. And that's going to show you any late entry information and whether it's been utilized for billing.
All right. The next one says, Oregon's rates are changing on 1/1/19. Is there any way to input the new rates on new service authorizations ahead of time and set them up to go live in the future?
Yes. So you have a couple capabilities within the system. So you have an innate rate history option on the billing side. This is a description code. Right here, that's where you have your applicable OR codes. So right here, for example, it really doesn't make any difference. It has the same functionality. You'd be able to do your, you have your enable rate history right here. And you also have this rate, or you also have this functionality on the service authorization itself. So if your rates are individualized, you have this same functionality. You would just do it on the service authorization level. But right here, you're able to indicate from this date to this date, here's the effective rate. From here, this date to this date, here's the effective rate. You can go ahead and start your service authorizations with that effective date. So if you have that data and information in the system, and then when you go to generate the billing data effective, that January 1st date, and you have your service authorization start for, your January 1st, I'm letting it come up. So for instance, on my service authorization, and we're just going to grab one just so you can see, have a visual. All right, so right here, your begin date, end date. So you could set all of these up right now. You could do your enabled rate history right now, but just doing that enabled rate history will allow you to not really have to redo service authorizations. So if it is ongoing and continuous across that January 1st date, you really only have to do that enable rate history. So when you generate your billing information, it'll grab the correct rate based on those service dates. Before we go to the next question, I do want to show you all those notifications first before we get too much further, because I did say I would show you that. So right down here underneath your settings, you have your personal details. So even if you don't see all this other stuff yet, you have your personal details. You're going to select edit. And down here underneath your preferences, you're going to check the box that says enable notification. Okay. You will then have these two fields populate. I still recommend logging out and logging back in after you have enabled that. On your notification information, you're able to designate the email address that you possibly want the notification sent to, or your text email address if you want to receive a text saying that these are running low on units, these are about to expire. The notification profile is where you're actually designating what you want to be notified on. So for this instance, we're going to look at service authorization. And the notification event says, okay, yes, I want to be notified when they're getting to expire or when they're setting low on units. And then I can indicate how I want to be notified down here. Now, here, you do have the option underneath your provider preferences. So if you don't want to indicate those all individually, and you're setting these up for the first time, by the way, if you already have your authorization set up, you would have to go into them to make these applicable edits to the notifications. So right here, you can set these up so whenever you do a new service authorization, these settings will apply. But then those will come into whatever option you've designated, and you'll get the service authorization ID. So we do not submit any PHI type information because we do still allow it to be sent outside of Therap. So you'll receive a service authorization form ID that looks like, okay, that looks just like that. So what I would do is I would just copy that and I would do a service authorization search to identify exactly what was about to expire. Okay, sorry, go right ahead. I just wanted to, I didn't want to bypass that.
Okay, so I want to mention there is a cost associated with the billing module, but you would have to contact a I'm blinked on a salesperson. And if you do not know who that is, I can put my email in the chat box below, and you can email me, and I can connect you. And I also can, I think there's a job form I can have you guys fill out. So I do want to mention that. And some of the questions are mostly geared to billing itself. Do you guys have any questions regarding billing for employment? And I'll wait a couple of seconds to see if there is before we continue. And I do want to mention, just in case you came in late, there is a Basecamp group if you have any employment questions and you want to ask other providers. There is a group that you can, I'll put it in the chat below, that you can join and ask questions. Heather, it's got 5 minutes. You want to answer the rest of these billing questions? I can start with the next
week. We can certainly try. I have about 5 minutes left. So.
me see where I left off. I mentioned the one for Oregon, right? What's the difference between the SIN under professional claims and the claim submission on 2 sections below?
That is your large batch submission and your small batch submission. So that SIN does 100 claims at a time per payer, and the large batch submission does up to 1,000 claims at a time per service description code, per payer, and per service dates.
Someone asked, how does our billing system compare? And I guess that's a competitor they named. I'm not sure. Again, if you would want to get with a salesperson, I put my email below, and you can email me and I can connect you to that person. The next question is, service authorization was entered incorrectly. How can I get the data back on prep status to regenerate with the correct rate?
With the correct rate, you're not going to put it back in an in-prep status like in the attendance. The enable rate history, like I indicated, will take effect on generated billing data. So if you've already generated it, that's just fine. But if you needed to apply to a claim that you've already submitted, you would mark the claim billable first. So any corrections or any changes you make to a claim or need to make to a claim, regardless of if it was rejected, denied, or you're editing any kind of information, you always need to have the claim in a billable status, which is its default status. But once it's in a sent status here, these fields will be locked. But you need to have it in billable status, and then you would go do that enable rate history either on the service description code or on the service authorization itself. And it does look a little bit different on the service authorization. Just show you what that looks like. So right here, you have your enable rate history, you add your rate history information, and you want to put in what the previous rate, what those effective dates were, and you want to put in the actual rate that matches those services. So you could have multiple lines here. So you would enter those, save the overall entry, and approve the update. But then you're going to turn around and go right back into this, because after you input in the dates and the service code, after you've saved it, and if it's for anything that's previous, you've already generated for billing, you're going to have a little apply button directly to the right of the date range and the rate. Now, that's only to apply to any previously generated billing information. You do not have to designate that if you're setting it up for any future rates.
All right, I'll try to go through the next couple of ones, and there is one hand raised, so I'm going to skip a couple that are similar. Is there a way to override to get billing generated that is over 90 days old?
Yes, there's not an override. You can just generate it.
Okay. Is Nebraska able to do this method of billing?
Not really, no.
Is there a way to configure notifications for service authorization expiration only on some services?
Yes, you can identify, you can have it specific on the authorization itself. So for this services right here, I would set up the notifications. So I can apply this on a service and individual specific level.
Last thing, and Carolyn, I am going to unmute you because you had your hand raised. So you are unmuted. Do you still have a question? Okay. Carolyn, I'm going to mute you again. I don't hear you saying anything. Okay, so there's another hand raised. Tina, I'm going to unmute you. You're unmuted. All right, I don't hear anybody, so I'm assuming that was by accident. I'm going to mute you, Tina. All right, so thank you guys for attending this webinar. There will be a survey sent out with 3 questions. So please give us back your feedback. If you have any additional questions, please reach out. And We will have a webinar next month. It won't be on billing, but stay tuned for that. And thank you guys for joining us today. You guys have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Heather.